and good evening, everyone. I'm Katie McManus, business strategist, money mindset coach, and I'm joined this evening with Michelle Hugo.
Hi, I'm Michelle McCarthy, branding specialist.
No.
I wasn't sure where I was positioned on the screen.
Yes,
And
you're up
there
here.
you go. This is like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, I know. We need a few more. There's a few more that we need, but we're very close.
I know.
And
Yeah.
Michelle, you're like, are you back? You're like in and out.
Oh, am I?
No,
No, you're good.
she's
You're
on
good.
my
You're
end.
good. You're good now.
On
You're
my
good
end.
now. You're in.
You're
Yay.
in. Carrie, you
Into
have
the
to
Brady
introduce
Bunch.
yourself.
Yes, sorry. I got distracted. Squirrel brain. I'm Kerry Barrett. I am a publicity coach and an on-camera coach with these two lovely young ladies.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And tonight we're talking about accountability and how to create your own accountability and stay accountable and all things. But very importantly, before we entered this this conversation, we were talking about wildlife in Australia since Michelle was. So I think as you're arriving, hello, we're just going to have a little moment where we're talking about wildlife in Australia. If you have any questions, we have our Australian wildlife expert, Michelle, here, who is telling us how awful koalas are.
Yeah. I'm shocked.
I mean, I am a naturalized citizen, so therefore that automatically makes me an expert. But also, I'm afraid that if I say the wrong thing, they're going to take my passport off me. We were talking about how common koalas, how common kangaroos are outside in the countryside, not in the city, obviously. And then we were talking about koalas and how koalas are not as great as we think they are. That one, they're not cuddly, they're not fluffy, they're very, very scratchy, they're very, very lazy. And then also they're as Australians would say, they're a bit shit.
Yeah. They sound like
I don't drop the C word. We'd actually call someone a shit C word, but I was like, don't know everybody's audience. Maybe I shouldn't. The real Australian thing to say would be like, yeah, they're.
I think my audience would be cool with it. I'm pretty sure Katie's would be too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, koalas are a bit of a shit cunt, so. That's the most Australian thing I've said in a very long time.
Wait, I love that expression, and that is going to be like part of my daily parlance now. Thank you for that. That was worth the price of admission.
So yeah, that's our tidbit for the day. Koalas are shit.
Chris Bogue says, "How dare you say that about koalas?"
So they're kind of assholes then, yes? A little bit.
They're a lot assholes. And this isn't me. I am quoting Croc. I think it's Turnbull. He's an Aussie, a proper Aussie. He's on TikTok. He's absolutely amazing. Very, very funny. But he answers questions about Australian wildlife. But sometimes he takes the piss because somebody asked him one day about muff diving, and he answered it as if it was a sport. I suppose it is to some. But like he never breaks character. It's so good. He'd be like a more unhinged version of Steve Irwin.
But by the way, I like everybody I have ever known has always said that, several years back, I was always going to leave my husband and run away with Steve Irwin and marry like the crocodile hunter. But hold on, I have a question. I jumped forward. Takes the piss. What does that mean?
Oh, that's oh my God, how do I explain that? It takes the piss.
It's kind of like making fun of, like to.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's like to take the piss.
Like if someone says I'm just taking the piss, it means I'm just teasing. I'm just making fun. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
It's not serious.
Yeah.
I'm not.
But teasing is what people do in elementary school. Like taking the piss is what like adults do.
Yeah.
What you do when you're adulting. Yeah. So mature.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, oh my God, we could do a whole segment on like Aussie slang, and I could get you to like guess what it is because it is its own language. It is absolutely insane. But it's really funny because then when I go home to Ireland, it's like I'm trying to like not come across as like super Australian. Like they say servo, which is the gas station, so it's short for service station. So that's very common. Macca's. The bottle or the bottle shop is the off license. Arvo, Avo, Like and there's a lot of other words. They're just shortened words. There's a whole lot of other language that I'm like.
Wait, Servo was a gas station, and what was the other one you said?
The Bottle,
which is a liquor store.
Liquor store, yes.
Okay, got it.
Or
you guys
bottle
know
shop.
what a packy is?
Is that a package store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what?
A package store.
Package store, but do you know what that is?
A package. Is that not like a UPS?
No, it's a liquor store. It's New England. Yeah. Like the Boston.
Okay.
Go to the packy. Gotta go to the packy for some beer.
And I only know that because my husband's from Vermont.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess in Michigan they call it a party store.
Oh,
that makes sense.
Yeah. Makes a lot
in
more
Texas,
sense.
we called it the ABC, the Alcoholic Beverage Control.
Right.
It's the ABC store.
Not creative.
I like that.
Not an educational store in any way. I think we lost Michelle.
Oh no! You know what it is? I switched tabs. I switched tabs to look up Australian slang, and that's why I was still here. But yeah, it's its own language, and yeah, sometimes I still get caught off guard. It's very, very funny.
I
enjoy it. It's a bit of fun. But then also, because I used to live in the US as well, sometimes like normal words, like we'll just say like sidewalk is what you guys would call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we call it the path in Ireland. And then when I'm here, I'm like the path, the footpath, the sidewalk, the side path. And then I get so confused. I can't. I'm blanking. Any Aussies?
What do they call it? You don't know what they call it in Australia?
I don't know, because I have like 4 different words that I've picked up from just never settling in one. So I'm like, I mean, for the most part, everybody will know what I mean.
Yeah.
I've never really had an instance.
Where you've been talking about a sidewalk and someone hasn't been able to contextually understand.
Exactly. That doesn't really happen in this country. Other countries, maybe, but not so much in this country. They kind of, they get it. But yeah, I'm trying to, I think it's just footpath. I think it's just footpath. Yeah. But anyway, there's a lot of things like that I get really mixed up in between what's American, what's Irish, and what's Aussie.
Right.
I think Americans get mixed up by what's American.
I know. Driving cross country when I was like 22, we drove through the South. I remember going to a Starbucks in Mississippi, and the guy like at the register was just kept saying something. I'm like, huh? Yeah. What? And he said, he finally articulated it in an accent that I could understand. It was, how is your life? And at that point, it was like an existential question. I'm like, my life is okay, you know? And he's like, this is too much. It's like, how you doing, lady? Like, calm down.
You Yankees.
I know.
When you guys walk into a store and someone goes, good morning, how was your day? Like, do you respond?
I say good.
Okay.
Do you not respond?
How are you? You know.
Do I respond in Australia? Yes. Do I respond in America? No.
No.
Sometimes it depends. Sometimes it's just really aggressive. It's like all up in your face. Yeah. And it's just it's not culturally accepted in Ireland or Australia to be like
that forward.
It's a bit like it's a bit jarring, and then I suppose I get used to it depending on how long I'm there. I acclimate again.
Yeah. I mean my whole stance on it is that like if someone's being that like, how are you? Like they obviously want to sell me something. I tend to be like equally pleasantly aggressive back. Like I'm well, how are you? Cool. I'm just browsing. Yeah. Great. See you later. Bye. You know?
Yeah.
It's quite interesting because like when that happens, a little bit of me wants to like pull them aside and give them a little bit of coaching. Just be like, this is how you can like sell like a human. But it's quite interesting because I can also see the same things happening on social media where, you know, everything is an ad. Like they are doing that version of, oh, hi, you liked my post? Hi, do you want to buy my stuff? Hello. Like, and it's like, you know,
we're a little aggressive.
Yeah. I think I internalized something I learned when I lived in France is that like when you walk into a store, you have to say hi or else it's incredibly rude. And so anytime I walk into a store now and they don't say hi to me, I just leave.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. I don't like it. It's just like, okay, if you can't acknowledge the fact that I walked into your store,
Yeah.
then like, and at least even for me, it feels like a line of communication. Like, if you need anything, I'm here. Or if you have any questions, I'm here. I don't need someone to like cater to me, but it just seems polite.
Does this apply? Does this apply at like a convenience store environment and also when you're clothes shopping? Because I have two entirely different reactions depending on where I am.
It depends on the setup of the convenience store, because there are some convenience stores where like the doors go past the cash register, and then there are some convenience stores where the cash register is like in the center towards the back, which is a weird place to have.
Yeah.
But like you're not automatically going past there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to be like, "Hi, how are you?" from across the way. But yeah, like in a clothing store, if you're walking to like a department store and there's someone there, I'll generally say hello to them as I enter. As if they're the representative for the whole store, and they translate like, all right, Katie McManus has entered the building and she said hello to me. So consider yourself greeted by her. Like,
headed back to shoes, get ready. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, yeah. Well, and customer service is such a funny thing, because it's like, it's something that it's all so personal, and I think kind of very loosely relates to what we're talking about today about accountability, right?
Yeah.
Because accountability, much like how you walk into a store and prefer to be greeted or not greeted or whatever, how we manage our own accountability is different across the board.
Yeah.
So like, I'm curious, I know how we hold each other accountable for our project, our super secret project that we're not really announcing yet, but we're kind of talking about. But I'm curious, how do you guys hold yourselves accountable for stuff in your workday, in your life, and things like that when you don't have this kind of support?
I'm pretty bad at it, honestly. I mean, the truth is, I do write myself a series of to-dos and tasks, but I find that it's really easy without having somebody next to me to guide me along. It's very easy to get derailed. It's very easy to go down a path where I feel like I'm doing something or I'm moving toward my goals, and I'm actually just creating sort of busy work for myself, for lack of a better word. And then it requires me to be very intentional about stopping and thinking about whether I'm doing something. Like when I think about accountability, I think about people who are helping me do things or helping guide me or keeping me on track to doing things that actually move the needle, rather than getting stuck with, like, again, the busyness. And so I have to be very intentional, if I'm doing it on my own, about calling myself out and stopping and saying, am I doing something that's actually making me like move toward this goal, or am I occupying myself with crap that doesn't amount to much?
Right.
A lot of the times it's the latter.
Yeah. Don't know if that's
most
like
fun.
Yeah. It's way more fun.
Move the needle. Yeah, the stuff that's going to move the needle is boring.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that. It's the fun, creative stuff that you get sucked into, and then you're like, oh my God, it's been 5 hours. Oops.
Yeah.
Like that's because it's fun, which is, I think because sometimes in those moments I have created some really cool things. I get into like hyper focus, but trying to be realistic with myself that every side quest is going to amount to this cool thing that I create, or not necessarily cool, but relevant.
Right.
Is, I think, is something that I'm still learning with. Also can't speak English. Put that on my to-do list. I was trying to say learning and grappling with is what I was trying to say. And I think it was the biggest, and like I said, I'm still figuring it out. When I started my own business, when I went from being employed to self-employed, I felt like a toddler who like found the Christmas press, as we would call it, like just the stash, and was like allowed let loose. And you're like, what am I don't know what to do. I can do anything. You mean I can do anything with my time?
Yeah.
And creating those structures and routines for myself I'm still figuring it out, if I'm being honest. The thing that works for me most is homework. I need accountability. I need homework. And if that is like with you guys saying, okay, by next week, I'm going to do this, or Katie, I'm going to see you on Friday. I'm going to have this done.
Yeah.
This is my homework. That's essentially what, and most of the time it still gets done like the night before. Like it did all through school.
Yeah, 100%. So I just had my first session with a new client today, and he said to me, listen, I understand your skills. We're working on camera communication, but he said at the end of the day, what I really need is somebody that will hold me accountable, because I want to do this thing. And I have been trying to do this thing for 6 months now. And every time I try and do it, I find that I do it once or twice and then I drop off because it's like not pleasant, or it's especially challenging, or I have certain fears around it and I'm not really competent in it yet. So it becomes very easy to drop off. I need somebody who's going to teach me these things, give me the homework, to use your word, Michelle, and then hold me accountable for doing it until we meet again. And that's my main goal with working with you, because I know what I need to do, but I can't seem to get there.
Right.
It's key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm before I answer my own question, I just have to share what Jatin, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. In the US Civil War, a deadline was a piece of wood. This boundary served a lethal purpose. Any prisoner who crossed the line even slightly would be shot without warning by guards positioned along the walls. I'm really glad that's not deadlines anymore.
Well, me too.
I mean, it's a nice tidbit. I mean, sometimes I need that level of a deadline, because sometimes I have homework and I still don't do it.
Yeah.
So sometimes, I'll think of that from now on. That's good. I like that.
Well, it's funny because, like, how I used to do work when I worked for companies was always like out of fear of being punished.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fear of not, meeting the expectation or not being good enough or whatever. So I'd always exceed expectations until I burned myself out.
Yeah.
And it was just like this punishing cycle. It didn't feel good. And I think the first several years of my business, I treated myself that way. And it was just like, I have to punish myself into doing the thing so that I exceed expectations. But there was no one giving me like the pat on the back at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It was just like, it's just me in a room by myself, like having a little existential confidence crisis of like, am I good enough? I don't know. And in the last few years, I've really been reckoning with how I do work and realizing that like there's a gazillion ways to grow a business. And because there are a gazillion ways, like there's no one right way. So I really prioritize doing the things that I enjoy doing, because I'm far more likely to be accountable and like stick to it, right? Like writing on LinkedIn or creating stupid TikToks or whatever. I really enjoy that stuff. But it's like I get to be my best version of myself, or my favorite version of myself, and do it.
Yeah.
And I'm learning to trust myself a lot more to actually like go forward and do the thing. And I think also getting really clear on, here are the tasks I need to do to reach that goal, and not getting distracted by like all the side quests that I could convince myself would help me do it. Yeah. And what that takes is having other brains kind of looking at my business with me and be like, no. Like Michelle did this with me several weeks ago. She's like, this is not serving the greater purpose.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, it's done. It's gone.
He took action like it was, she's like, okay, cool. We're not doing that anymore. And I'm like, okay, I like it. But I think also this is where all coaching helps. I mean, we all know if we wanted to lose weight, it's calories in versus calories out, but we're still going to hire a personal trainer for that accountability. It's the same with business coaching, any kind of coaching. It's someone who can be objective, and strategy and all that comes into it. Absolutely. But for the most part, it's accountability and someone being objective, being able to take the emotion out of it and be like, this is like that. This is not serving you.
Right.
I don't think you should do that anymore. And then,
Well, and Katie, it's interesting. You mentioned expectations. Like your plan was always to exceed the expectations. One of the things I found challenging, and I had a certain level of expectation that was put upon me when I, used to work in the news industry, and I would always try and exceed it. Now I'm the one who's setting the expectations. You are the one that's setting the expectations, Michelle. I mean, certainly our clients are to some degree as well, and we want to serve them, but ultimately the expectation for ourselves is what brings us to our next step, the next thing we want to do in our business. And it has been really challenging, trying to do without guidance or accountability, setting reasonable expectations as well. Like enough to push myself, but not enough that if I don't make it, I'm going to feel like an abject failure, which is very easy to do as well when you are running your own thing. And, the interesting thing is too, I was reading this study the other day, and I can't for the life of me remember where I was reading it, but regardless, it was saying that people who have ADHD and are in high demanding professions, that those traits may actually be hidden to some degree. Like the demands of the job actually are able to sort of mask some of the struggles that you face. And we've talked about this a million times. I don't think I ever realized that I struggle with that until I had a business. And I realized that, like, when I worked in the news industry, this was what I did this at this time, then this happened. And then I had a deadline that was down to the second, at 5:32 and 31 seconds, I was delivering this story and I had to be on at that time. And when you don't have those guardrails, it is so much easier to fall off track and to go down those sort of like rabbit holes. And that's been a big challenge for me, and having somebody to hold me accountable, like a group to work with, whether it's individual, etc., has been a I would say game changer. Sounds like something that AI would write, but it sort of has been.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it's well, it's funny because you can set these unreasonable expectations for yourself, but I think reminding yourself that like an expectation and a goal sometimes just get confused, and it's like you can set a goal for yourself and not reach it, but it doesn't mean you didn't make progress.
Right.
Yeah, that's hard. That's really hard.
Yeah. And this is like, shoot for the star. I like this. I know it's the other way, like shoot for the moon, but then you land the stars, but that freaks me out because then you're just like floating off in space.
Yeah. Kendall, by the way, the stars are farther away.
The stars land on the moon. Like, at least you could there's a way for you to be recalled back to Earth.
Yeah, and I'm not so like if I'm shooting for the moon and I went way off track. I'm not at all prepared for this level of success.
This is so ADHD, I swear to God.
But to the point, like the other point of the gazillion points we're making, is do you have a dog or are you just stringing?
No. I'm stringing all the strings that you're putting out. We're bringing them together. I
thought they were
the adrenaline is actually something that people with ADHD, when you don't know how to manage your own ADHD because you're not aware of it, you tend to end up in roles that you're really successful in because there's adrenaline attached. And adrenaline is the thing that like overrides your executive function when it's not working. Right. God. So like, whereas like you could just sit here and just like twiddle your thumbs and be like, I know I have stuff to do. I need to do it. But like, there's no deadline. There's nothing like coming at me that I have to do it for. It's very different than in a news situation or like when I was in sales, like the end of the month, like closeout is coming and you have to make your sales or else you don't have a job next month. Like,
it's huge.
Yeah. So, I think that's why a lot of people with ADHD are successful in those roles, but it's not necessarily good for us because we get burned out because adrenaline in your system all the time is not healthy.
That makes so much sense. Oh my God. I'm like going back through all my past jobs and I'm like, yeah. That makes sense. I can see that.
But like the all-nighters, like doing a paper the night before, that's adrenaline. Yeah. Like you have executive dysfunction until the night before because it's due tomorrow. I never wrote, I think I wrote one paper in advance in my entire scholastic career.
Yeah. I think I wrote my dissertation the night before, like in a night.
Right. Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I did my thesis. I was a little bit more regimented, but then that was also because there was certain deadlines along the way. It wasn't like go do your thesis and then present it at the end of the year. It was like there was reviews and revisions, and certain chapters had to be submitted at different points.
Right.
But the dissertation was just, this is due at this date. And I think what actually ended up happening was I procrastinated and I binged the entire Sex and the City box set and then wrote. And so I wondered, seriously, in my dissertation, it's like it's written in Carrie's tone of voice. It's insane.
Did you write and just like that? Did you?
No.
Okay.
Could you imagine? Oh God. Yeah, so that's funny.
Yeah. Well, and we were talking about this in the very beginning, like, you know, what got us to do subjects in schools that we didn't want to do. And I know I shared that it's like I had a crush on the teacher.
Yeah.
Or I wanted them to think I was cool. Like I felt like we had enough in common, or that, like, I don't know, I just felt like there was mutual respect. But if I didn't like them, or they rubbed me the wrong way, or if like there was just something in their teaching manner that I didn't respect, there was no way I was doing well in their class.
Yeah. I had the same thing, and I didn't really realize that was how it worked for me until speaking with you and putting it all together. But looking back at, and I have never, I know we're going down this ADHD track, and I haven't been diagnosed or anything, but looking back, I realized that there were very clear signs that I was, and that I didn't have any sort of guardrails around me. In fact, it was probably back then that I could have used an accountability partner that I just didn't have. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think also, like, one of the things to use a beaten to death metaphor, like you're the five most people that you spend the most time with.
Yeah, you're the sum. You're the average or the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, something like that. But exactly. It's so true. But it's so true.
It is. But that's also why you need to be really careful about who is in your circle, or at least who are going to be those top 5. Because there has been times in my life, and this came from a loving place, but we'll say if they were family members or people that I was really, really close to, they don't want to see you struggle. And a lot of business is struggling at the start. Like, when you're trying to do all the things and before you have enough cash flow to start outsourcing. So they want you to take the safest path, and they're like, they just want the best for you. But what ends up happening is you can kind of become complacent because you don't have those people that are edging you on. Like when you were saying, Kerry, in this little group that we have, we're all kind of slightly pushing each other that little bit. Not so much that we're going to get overwhelmed, but we're also not going to like, oh no, it's fine. Just
you're good.
There's that accountability, and we're also pushing each other to be just a little bit better and a little bit better, and it's kind of compounding over time rather than just being super complacent and letting it become like a venting session, and we don't actually take any action.
No. Right. I mean, sometimes it's a venting session.
It's necessary. It's necessary.
Yeah, it is necessary. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there is that for a long time, and I've been in this now for about, I guess I'm going on about 4.5 years. And you're right. In the beginning, you don't have the people that are pushing you. You have your family around you and like people that are very close in your circle, but they're not necessarily the ones who are able to hold you accountable in the way that you need to be held accountable, because they don't understand what you're doing. They haven't been there before. They're, they want you to play it safe. I mean, we hear this all the time. People go to lose weight, and suddenly the people that are around them that are supposed to be their accountability partners and in their corner are the ones who are sort of stopping them at every point. Don't change, don't do this differently. They want them to stay safe. People don't like when we change our routines. We don't follow the pattern that we have established already. So it's, to echo your point, Michelle, in a very long rambling way, it is incredibly important to the people that we bring around us that are our accountability partners or our mentors or our guides or our coaches to some degree.
Yeah. And the really sad part is that it happens at every level, which I didn't realize. I was prepared for the family, the people who've never run their own business. I was prepared for the friends, and the friends that were kind of on the outskirts. I knew they would fall away.
Yeah.
I was not prepared that when I found the business friends that I wanted so much, but then was ready to go to the next level, that they were at their ceiling and they weren't coming with me, which is so hard because you finally find this group and it's just like it's just repeating itself. And unfortunately, if you're lucky enough to find people that are going to come with you, that's amazing. But it's kind of like this shedding process at each new level, new devil kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like a redo of like crabs in a bucket every single time.
What's crabs in a bucket?
Oh, I thought it was just me. I thought it was a cultural thing.
I've never heard of
you guys don't know what crabs in the okay. So if you put it like 100 crabs in a bucket, like they'll try to climb out, but all the crabs will keep pulling them back in. They'll never get out. Like you can have an open bucket full of crabs that are alive, and like their claws aren't banded or anything, and they won't escape.
So they're each trying to
pulling them back,
climb up on the other, but then the other is trying to grab and pulls them down.
Yeah.
That explains why crab pots have like this huge hole. I always wondered.
You guys haven't heard that? It's funny.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I wouldn't mind. My family come from like fishermen. But anyway, that's weird.
Well, there you go. There's a new metaphor for you to play with. Yeah. But it's like it can be small. It could be about something that you're going after in your business. It could be weight loss. On a much more serious note, like I have a dear family friend who's in AA, and they shared with me that another person in their AA group gave up drinking. Their husband didn't like that they weren't drinking with him and threatened to divorce them. And even though it's costing them their health and their life, they've decided to go and continue drinking just because they don't want their marriage to fall apart.
Yeah.
But it's like like accountability is one of those things that's like, it's such a feel-good conversation. We can talk about being productive, blah, blah, blah. But like, it really does touch upon every single part of our life. How do we want to live our life? How healthy do we want to be? Who do we want to show up every single day?
Who do we want around us?
We have to be very conscious of who we're including in that, because it does equal who we end up being at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of, at least I do, forget how interconnected the different areas of our lives are. So you're like, oh yeah, I keep my promises to myself in my business, but I don't keep my promimes to myself in terms of my diet and exercise. You are breaking promises to the same person,
right?
And that kind of will show up over time. So you can't kind of silo different parts of your life and be like, okay, I'm going to be really committed to this, but I'm just not going to be as honest with myself in these other areas. It's all interconnected. And just on the whole like family and friends, that story is really, really sad. And I unfortunately I think it's probably more common than we realize. It's also not it's also not as obvious when you're in it. Right. Like when you stop drinking, or you stop eating takeaways, or stop whatever it is that you're doing, sometimes it's not that obvious that your friends go, oh my God, you're not doing this and I want you to do this, or I'm not going to be friends with you. Sometimes it's just like a subtle dig, or they hit a nerve, or it creeps up on you. So we all kind of fall victim to it because we were prepared for the really obvious conversations, but it's rarely like that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It made sense in my head.
No, it 100% makes sense. So I'm dry. Like I'll have a little glass of wine, or I had a Campari soda with Kerry in New York. But like I've maybe had 3 beverages in the last year, but like it gives me anxiety. I don't really enjoy how I feel afterwards, whatever. And the first time I gave up alcohol, I actually sat down with my friend Tim, who had been dry for numerous months. And I was like, how do you explain this to people?
Yeah.
Right. Like, how do you go about your day? Because we all know that moment of being in a social situation where someone isn't drinking, you're like, You sure?
Oh,
Do you want
what's
beer? Do you
wrong?
want light
Are you
beer? Do you
okay?
want this?
Yeah.
Da, da, da. And like, how do you navigate that? And it is, there's like the mental preparation for it, but then there's also dealing with the ramifications that you didn't expect.
Mhm. What was it like for you? I mean, have you dealt with people who were
I mean,
questioning
not
your?
like dramatically, but I've lost friends.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like there
Yeah.
are friends who genuinely don't know what to do if they're not drinking,
Yeah, I have that too.
you
Yeah.
know?
Drinking buddies.
And
Yeah.
it's like, it's, I can be around people who are drinking. It's totally fine,
Yeah.
but like for them, it brings too much awareness to, oh, how many beverages have I had? And they're completely sober,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like with business. Like since I've started my business, like I've also lost friends,
Same.
because there are friends who like we used to like just shoot the shit about all of our business ideas all the time, like, and not act on them. And then I started acting on them, and it brought a lot of awareness to what they weren't acting on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never been outright said, but I know that's one of the reasons we don't spend time together anymore.
Yeah. I have friends, not in the business space, but friends before who I don't have the time that I used to like sit around and text for long periods of time and because I'm not able to, whatever, shoot the shit, that friendship has dropped off. And it's not because necessarily that I don't have the time, but they don't understand why I don't have the time. It's very
Right.
hard to explain what it is that I'm doing because they're not in the same space. And I get that.
Right.
But it's it can be really, really lonely is what I've come to realize.
Yeah.
I heard someone recently use the analogy. It's like, that friend that keeps going back to the ex, even though the ex is trash.
Mhm.
It's like even though the friendship may still be there, but if you've moved on and they're still grappling with the same problems and they're still like you're saying, Katie, like they're not taking action, they're complaining about the algorithm or whatever, rather than taking a look at what it is that they're doing, and they're posting once a month and they're wondering why they're not a millionaire. And that was fine when you both had that problem, but then you realized and you took action, and now it's crabs. So yeah, it's like sometimes it's not even an intentional thing. It's not like it's just that you don't have anything in common anymore, or it's not even that you don't have anything in common. You're like, I cannot keep having the same go I can't keep do a play-by-play of every text you sent your ex that I know you're going to get back with next week. Like,
right.
Yeah.
I've got an empire to build. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
love you,
I
but like
that.
go over there.
I like that. I have an empire to build. It's my new go-to. That and some of the other words that you taught me today too.
I love it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the conclusion we can come to then is that like to be accountable, you don't just need like to know what works for you. You need people who will evolve with you.
Yeah.
And you need to have this readiness or the okayness to like let go of relationships that are no longer like being that accountability for you to reach those goals without like labeling it like you're a bad person because you stop being friends with them,
or this is toxic or whatever.
Yeah,
it's not that necessarily, but
yeah.
Finding the right tribe.
Right.
Yeah. It's key.
And often the right tribe is people who are doing like different things in different areas, but with the same drive.
I think that's actually super important. I think it's actually not great to have people that are quote unquote your competitors,
Right?
Because even without meaning to, you're going to get into that compare thing, because if they get a break and then you might end up unintentionally copying, or if you come up with an idea, it's like who gets to use. Whereas if you're in two different industries,
it doesn't
you
matter.
Can kind of you can shoot the shit a little bit more, and then you're like, oh my god, I've got this great idea. You should do it as well. And it's not a thing. It also this is something that like I learned when I was in design school, was in order to create something, nothing is new, but in order to create something new, you have to look for inspiration outside of the normal things. Like the most common one is when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, it was because he had stumbled into a calligraphy class and he understood the power of design, and that's why Apple took on this, put design front and center. we were always told to look at like architecture and different types, different industries for inspiration. And I think the same thing works, because if you get into your bubble of your peers, you kind of create this group think dynamic.
Right.
Whereas if you have people who are in different locations and different industries, there's a lot more inspiration and a lot more things can happen, and a lot more magic can happen, I think, in those situations.
Yeah.
Right.
The group think is, agreed 100%.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, with that, I know Michelle, you're just starting your day. Kerry and I, towards the end of ours.
I'm going to bed immediately.
I know, same. What's the accountability that we're really excited that we get from each other?
What is the accountability that we're really excited?
What's the thing that we're excited that we hold each other accountable for?
I love that you guys push me. Yeah. Like, and again, kind of like the different areas.
Yeah.
So Katie, business strategy, and then Kerry talking on camera, doing a bit of PR, and all your different experiences all kind of bounce off each other, and together we kind of create this kind of little unit where we're all bringing something different to the pie. I don't know why, where the fuck that analogy came from. My brain, squirrel. But so
Crown pie.
We're all in the coaching space, but like that, we're bringing our own different expertise so we can kind of bounce off each other. Yeah. And then we're holding each other accountable.
Yeah. Well, what I like about working with you too is that like I feel like I'm in my zone of expertise, but I'm also learning more. Right? Like it's like I get to do exactly what I'm really good at, but I get to do it through two new lenses that I would never have thought about it before from.
Yeah.
Through which,
I mean, there's many times that I quote you, Katie, when I'm in coaching calls with my clients. It's kind of I quote these sessions because something came up and I'm like, oh, like the crab analogy. That will probably be something that I will use before the week is over. Different things that I can bring in, or you tell me a story and I'm like, oh yeah, that applies. So it's kind of bringing in those different things that I didn't think about. And then also because I work from home for the majority of the time, it's kind of like getting me out of my bubble a lot easier, which I love.
I like the same thing. I think to some degree that I am experiencing what I do, but I see it through Michelle, I see it through your lens, and Katie, I see it through your lens. And business strategy and branding are not at all my areas of expertise. Like most of the time during our calls, I just sit there in silence and nod my head as if I have any frigging clue what the hell either of you are talking about.
You're very convincing, though. You're very convincing.
I spent 20 years on the news. I know how to look like I understand what people are saying. Even if I have no freaking idea. But it is incredibly helpful to hear the two of you talk about what it is that you do, because it gives me ideas outside of our super secret project. It gives me ideas about ways that I can also talk to my clients or understand a little bit more about their challenges. And then of course you two hold me accountable, for, well, maybe not directly. I understand I have to hold up my end of what it is that we're working on together. And that pushes me to think forward, and it pushes me to stay on task, which for me is one of the hardest things.
Right. Yeah.
I think the fact that there's three of us also helps, because you don't want to be the odd one out. If there's two, it's very easy to be like if you had a running buddy or a gym buddy, it's very easy to be well, we'll just sleep in this morning. But it's going to be a lot harder to convince two of you to let me off the hook. Right. So, and you also don't want to be the one that lets the group project down.
Right. Yeah, it'd be different if we were all working on our own individual thing and then just checking in with each other like, it didn't really happen the way it was supposed to this week. Whatever.
Right.
It's like, no, I owe you guys stuff, and you owe us stuff, and you owe,
And if you don't get it in, you're holding the shit up.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. That's true.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you guys for doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to Chris and Jatan, and Chris and Alejandro and Henry, thank you guys so much for joining. And join us next week. We're going to be talking more about something we haven't decided yet. what? We usually decide like in the middle of our first meeting. So
Yeah, that's a hell of a tease. We're going to talk more about something.
Oh, wait. Next week is the night before Thanksgiving, so we're probably not doing it then.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I have to
come over, hang out with me. I won't be celebrating Thanksgiving. Come hang out with me. I'll talk to myself.
Okay. Perfect.
I'll create little heads on sticks.
Yeah, there we go. It probably sounds super intelligent.
That would be unhinged in the best way.
No, I would do something I would probably regret, so probably won't.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.